If you have questions, concerns, and are just lost when it comes to planning for retirement, meet Steve Hoyl and Derrick Caldwell of the Hoyl Financial Group. Derrick, Steve, welcome, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Glad to be back here with you. Derrick, you're looking snazzy. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you. Yes, doing great. Just got done with another new client, so very happy to have him and put his plan together. So I get real excited about this stuff. So we were helping him with budgeting and everything, and I mean, you can kind of see when people get a plan and they really get excited. A lot of times there's so many decisions to make, and that's what he said, is like, I'm just overwhelmed by all this. So what I've done the last 3 years, I haven't done anything. And I'm like, no. So we just start with the plan. We put it in place, baby steps, one little thing at a time. He's loving it now. And that's what I think we need a lot of times, are just small, focus in, on certain steps to get these done, because people get overwhelmed a lot. And, I'm no different. If we have 30 different decisions to make, well, we get paralyzed. So that's what I help with. And you could tell just him and his wife are so much more at ease. And that's why I do what I do.
But Derrick, don't you think it's 6 months from now when they come back in, their blood pressure is lower, they feel better about things, everything's coming together? That's when the rubber hits the road, when they really feel that peace that they have by having a plan, knowing what the future is going to look like.
Yeah, they could do what they want to do when they retire and not sit there and watch Fox News, CNN, and watch the stock market and wondering if they're going to eat Beanie Weenies next week, right? I mean, come on.
Planning for retirement, guys, it can be overwhelming. There's so many decisions to make, but you're exactly right. I mean, it takes you from that macro point of view to thinking about the micro, right? Let's just take step by step. Let's take it, question by question. And sooner than later, you're going to get to that finish line there. And the good news is, Steve and Derrick, you guys take on the heavy lifting.
Well, Derrick, break that down a little bit. Let's talk about the different categories of the plan so people can really understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's several. The first is income. How much do you want in retirement? How much do you make now? Next step is we look at expenses. What are you spending? Probably 90% of people don't even really know what they're spending. They know what their bills are. We know what our electric bill is, those non-negotiable things that we have to do to keep the lights on and everything, but how much they're actually spending. That discretionary spending, guys, after all your bills, is something that is really eye-opening a lot of times. But I want to know what income you need, what expenses are and everything, so we can really build that plan, because I want you to be able to live in retirement the way you want to, but it's important to know all that and be able to tell you, okay, so if you're spending X amount of dollars in retirement, well, you're going to have to need this much assets, or we need to make these changes to your plan. We start looking at right up front, what can you do in pre-retirement? What changes can you make that better your situation before you retire? Because, if you come to me, you've already retired and you don't have the assets that you need to, well, I mean, that's tough. So it's always about pre-planning. And then we look at the changes you make now that can impact the future. And I run a lot of different scenarios where you can feel comfortable about those changes and what we're doing. We look at after retirement. Where is your income going to come from? What's your taxes look like? What do you want to do in retirement? We add vacation budgets and 529s, college accounts for your grandkids, things like that. We budget all that stuff out so we know, and we can be able to stress test your portfolio. That way we know, within a very, very high probability of how your retirement is going to look. So then we even look at life insurance, your legacy, long-term care insurance. All those things factor in. We look at it from every single angle. And that's the biggest thing we hear a lot of times is, well, I didn't even know any of this. I didn't know where to start, how to corral all this. Well, that's our job. That's what we do on a daily basis, is to put these plans in place and look at all those different avenues for you and make sure that you're in a good place.
So, Derrick, as we talk about different income and different ways to retire, tell me about different income sources and different income streams that we put together for people. And, a lot of people come to see us, they've never thought about using that inheritance that they had laying out there. Or they have some rent houses that have just grown and grown in value, and they don't want to mess with them in retirement. But that could be a solid income stream. Tell me about that, please, sir.
Yeah, we start with the basics. Those are generally considered your pension, Social Security income, things like that. And then we look at your expenses, or how much income you want to generate. And that's kind of the basics where we look at your income gap. How much are you going to have from Social Security or a pension if you're lucky enough to get one of those, right, Steve? And how much you want to spend in retirement, how much you want in income there. And that's our income gap. So then we take that and look at your assets, whether they're inheritance, like you said, Steve, whether it's your 401k, whether it's a lifetime annuity that you have. All those things, we then put together a plan on how are we going to best and effectively fill that income gap utilizing your other assets. And really, fixed index annuities are a fantastic way of getting higher withdrawal rates on a lot of either 401k funds or inheritance, those type of things. That's probably one of the most popular income gap fillers that we utilize today, because you can get anywhere from 7 to 10% income off of that. And that's more than we can take out of our market portfolios quite substantially, where we have to factor in the risk tolerance and everything, like, with the market going up and down. So it's a great piece to lower the risk level in your portfolio and increase the amount of income that you have. So we can really utilize those in a really effective way, but it's always about maximizing every part of your portfolio, guys. You need a retirement savings in your bank, but that doesn't mean you just stick it in a checking account. We're going to maximize that for you. We're going to find the best CD rates at your local banks, things like that. Your market assets, we want to maximize those, whether you have annuities or whatever it may be. Every piece of that, what do you call that, Steve, the three-legged stool there?
Absolutely.
It has to be maximized, guys. That's just working smarter, not harder.
Derrick, I see so many people come see us and they wait till 62, 63 or right up on retirement. And I think a lot of people really miss that sweet spot. When you're 59 and a half and you can take control of your money, all of a sudden you don't have the fees that you had in that 401k. All of a sudden you can control the growth. You don't have just 4 or 6 options. You have a plan. Tell me about that.
Well, it's really maximizing, once again, anything you have. If you have an old 401k, guys, 99% of the time, you can move that over. If you've left a job, take control of it. Because I would say, there's a large portion of people that have left a job. They left a 401k there. They have no idea their balance, how it's invested, everything. And those are passive funds, guys, which means that they don't change how you're invested. They don't do anything with your money unless you log in online and change it all. So it's just sitting there for you. So that could be something that is going to really destroy your portfolio if you just let it go. And, we just moved a 401k from an old employer. It had been there 23 years, guys. And it made like $10,000 in 23 years.
I was just going to say, lots of missed opportunity there.
Yeah, because what happened is she forgot about it, Steve. But that was during 2008 when she did this. She had moved that to a bond portfolio as well as like some money market accounts, and she totally forgot about it. So it made barely any money over this whole period of time, and she really beaten herself up. And I told her, and that's common. I told her, that's something where we see it all the time. You got to take control of your money. It's your money. Make sure it's doing something for you instead of just sitting there.
Well, Derrick, did you ask her if she failed to plan or planned to fail?
Yeah, it was definitely a planning issue. But that's what we're taught, Steve. Me and you both are huge on education. We do education classes all over Texas. And, and no one helps with that. Even today, like high school, college, everything like that, it does not prepare you. And most of the time, especially, our generation, our parents didn't talk to us about money. They weren't supposed to.
Exactly.
You don't need to know.
It was taboo, yeah.
Yeah. And I tell everybody now, talk to your kids. Teach them better ways. Show them your failures. Show them things that you did wrong when you were growing up, because it'll really impact them.
Well, I think also, Derrick, so many people are coming to see us and they have an old plan. They all of a sudden thought they were going to die and their kids were going to take their qualified money and get money for the rest of their life. They don't realize that tax laws have changed. And I'm telling you, it's wrecking some people's estate plans. So, when people come to see us, we should sit down and talk about it. We work with a lot of different accountants, a lot of different attorneys. If you don't have one, we can recommend one. But what I find so often, I have so many friends that are CPAs and tax planners, they're just compliance officers. They once a year file your taxes. At Hoyl Financial, we're so strategic about figuring out what do your taxes look like in retirement? They can be a third of your income being wiped out each and every year.
Taxes continue to evolve, and I tell everybody a good plan evolves. I mean, just for instance, you look at Coca-Cola, how they've ran their company. The commercials that were on 20 years ago, they don't play anymore. They have new marketing material, new things that come out, new strategies. It's the same thing with your retirement plan, your legacy plan. It evolves. All these things change, whether the legalities, the taxation of it. So you need a retirement planner that's going to get you in touch with these new changes and really evolve your plan as time goes on, because that plan you got 10 years ago, probably 20 things have changed since then easily, and it may not work for you. It may not be maximizing. I'm all about maximizing what you have, getting everything to work for you, because do you want to take a little bit of time each month, each quarter to sit down with me and make sure that you earn the maximum that you can, or your plan is maximizing your retirement? Yeah, of course. Don't sit there and not do something about it just because I'm okay with the way things are. Okay doesn't fit the bill. I'm not okay with okay. No one else should be.
Give us at Hoyl Financial 2 hours to sit down and figure out your retirement, or give your boss 2 more years, and that's totally up to you. I see people that could today be retired, enjoying life, and know they're working for the man. Let's figure that out. It all starts with a phone call right now.
You know, Steve, what are the most overlooked aspects of retirement planning? Could potentially be your risk score, right? How much risk you're actually taking. Talk to me a little bit more about this.
Well, it's an eye-opening experience. We do these educational classes, and we have dinner with people. We kind of go over the different topics. And then the second part is in our office. And it's interesting. One of the things after we talk about lots of topics is we talk about what is your probability of success. And Derrick, we talked about that a lot. Tell me, we have a client that has huge amount of money, but his probability of success was only 93%. Break that down for me, please, sir.
The biggest thing with that client was that their spending habits were atrocious. And I'm here to tell you, because that's a question we get a lot, Steve, is, how much do I need to retire? Well, that number is different for everybody, because we all have different spending habits. We all have things that are important to us or not important to us. Steve, yours is gas. You'll drive all over town looking for the cheapest gas. Mine, boggles my mind. Everybody has their own thing, but he would spend just what I consider atrocious amounts of money, because while he was working, it kept coming in. He kept rolling in. I mean, he had high income and everything. Well, in retirement, there's a lot of other factors. There's no huge, gigantic bonus checks and things like that for him. So his probability of success, even with over $5 million, was 93%. And you would think a lot of clients that hear this story, and they're like, well, I can't even imagine that. Well, there's a lot of factors that go in, like I said, but that's one of them, is how you spend money, where your assets are located, what's your risk, and when we talk about risk, that's something I'd say I'm going to go on a limb and say every single person that I meet with has no idea of the amount of risk that they have in their portfolio, plain and simple, right? I mean, I just talked to a guy. He specifically said how he chose assets on his 401k is probably what everybody does, right? And it's what I did when I was 18 years old with my first 401k. Okay, let's look through the 7. So this 7 assets, that's the one that made the most last year. That's it. Right? And I'm ride or die. I'm never going to change it. That's what we do with that in our 401k. But it is mind-boggling to a lot of people when we sit down and we give them their risk score based upon their portfolio, because there's so many different things. Some are taking on more risk or less risk, or they don't even know their risk, right? I mean, a lot of times we see with older advisors, and they've had for a while, they don't update risk, and they don't take into account their lifestyle have changed and things that have happened to them have changed. Well, there's a huge discrepancy in how you invested 10 years ago and 20 years ago to how you invested now. We're different people. We've evolved things in our life. We have grandkids. Before we didn't. All these different types of things play into that. And so, everybody needs to know the amount of risk they're taking. It's your money, guys. Know what kind of risk they're out there and be comfortable with that. If you want 25%, guess what? we're going to have to risk it. If you want 10%, hey, less risky. If you want 5%, less risky. So all that plays into it, right, Steve?
So if you don't know what your risk is today in your portfolio, and you don't know how that risk is going to affect you in retirement, you need to call us. I'm going to tell you, when people in 2008 weren't worried about risk and they lost all of their retirement, don't let that happen to you today. Call us at Hoyl Financial today.
If you'd like to sit down with Steve and Derrick or a member of the Hoyl Financial Group, visit retiretexasstyle.com.
Investment advice offered through Hoyl Wealth Management, a Texas-registered investment advisor able to provide investment advice in states where it's registered, exempt, or excluded from registration. Content contained herein should not be construed as an offer or solicitation for investment advice or for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of loss, including possible loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, accounting, or legal professional before implementing any ideas or strategies discussed here. Content provided is obtained from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to its accuracy or completeness. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Steve Hoyl, Texas Insurance License 716036. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Steve Hoyl is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Steve Hoyl is licensed in your state, please call 806-371-9473.